The morning sun of the capital world cast long shadows across the Imperial Plaza. Thousands of alien beings filled the massive square, their voices creating a symphony of different languages and sounds. Market stalls lined the edges, selling goods from across 12 different worlds. The air smelled of exotic spices and strange flowers that only grew under triple suns. Empress Hijin walked slowly through the plaza, her royal guards surrounding her in a protective formation. Her silver robes caught the light with each step. She was young for an empress, barely into her third decade, but she carried herself with the authority of someone born to rule. The Velrathi people had ruled this sector of space for over 10,000 years, and she was their latest guardian. Captain Sora walked closest to the Empress, her hand never far from her weapon. She had protected Haye-jin since they were children, and she knew every possible threat. Her eyes scanned the crowd constantly, looking for anything unusual. The plaza was safe, but an Empress could never be too careful. The crowd parted as they walked. Some bowed, others simply stared in awe. This was a rare public appearance, and many had traveled from distant districts just to catch a glimpse of their ruler. Children pointed and whispered. Parents hushed them respectfully. Then they heard it, a child crying. The sound cut through the noise of the plaza like a knife. It was the kind of crying that spoke of true heartbreak, not just a small disappointment. Hijin stopped walking. Her guards tensed, uncertain what had caught her attention. "There," Hijin said quietly, pointing toward a small figure sitting on the plaza steps. Princess Nari, the Empress's 7-year-old niece, sat alone on the marble stairs. Tears streamed down her purple-tinged cheeks. In her small hands, she held a broken android. The toy was beautiful, crafted from silver metal and blue crystal, but it hung limp and lifeless in her grasp. Around her stood 5 royal technicians, their tools spread across the steps. They looked frustrated and helpless. One of them was speaking into a communication device calling for more help. Another examined the android with a scanning tool, shaking his head slowly. Haye-jin approached quickly. "What happened?" The lead technician bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, the princess's companion android has malfunctioned. The encryption system has locked us out. We cannot access the core programming without destroying the memory banks. The princess wishes to keep all the android's memories intact. How long to fix it properly? 3 weeks, perhaps 4. We need to send it to the Royal Engineering Academy. They have the proper decryption equipment." Nari sobbed harder. "But I need him now. He's my friend." Hye-jin knelt beside her niece, touching her shoulder gently. "I know, little one. These things take time. But he's scared in there. He can't talk or move. He must be so scared." The technicians exchanged glances. The android was not actually scared, of course. It was just a machine. But to the child, it was real. To her, the android was alive. Across the plaza, near a maintenance access panel, Kang Minho wiped sweat from his forehead. He had been working on a broken ventilation unit for the past 2 hours. The unit was old, installed back when this plaza was first built, and nothing worked the way the manual said it should. But Minho was used to that. Nothing ever worked exactly as the manual described. He heard the crying and looked up. At first, he tried to ignore it. This was royal business, and he was just a maintenance worker. A human maintenance worker, which made him even less important in the eyes of most people here. Humans were newcomers to this part of space, barely tolerated, certainly not respected. But the crying continued. Minho had a younger sister back on Earth. He remembered when she was small, when she cried like that. The sound pulled at something deep in his chest. "Don't do it," said Tarek, another maintenance worker repairing a nearby water fountain. Tarek was Velrathi, with the same purple skin and tall frame as most of his species. "That's royal business. You'll get in trouble." "The kid's really upset," Minho said. "Not your problem. You're human. They barely let your kind work here. Don't give them a reason to kick you out." Minho looked at his toolbox. Then he looked at the crying child. Then he made his decision. He picked up his tools and walked toward the stairs. The guards saw him coming. 2 of them moved to intercept him, their hands on their weapons. Minho stopped, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I can help," he said simply. "Step back, human," one guard said firmly. But Empress Hijin had noticed him. Something about the way he walked caught her attention. He moved with purpose, but not aggression. Confidence, but not arrogance. She raised one hand and the guards froze. "Let him approach." Minho walked up the stairs slowly. He nodded respectfully to the Empress, then knelt beside Princess Nari. He was eye level with her now. "Hi there," he said gently. "That's a really nice android. Can I see him?" Nari sniffled, holding the android tighter. "Can you fix him?" "I can try. May I?" Slowly, carefully, Nari handed over the android. Minho took it with both hands, treating it like it was precious. Because to this child it was. He turned the android over, examining it closely. His fingers traced the seams and joints. He pulled a small scanning device from his belt and held it near the android's chest panel. The device beeped quietly. The royal technicians watched with barely concealed contempt. One of them whispered to another, "He's human. He probably doesn't even understand the basic principles." Minho ignored them. He had heard such things before. He opened his toolbox and pulled out a small multi-tool. With practiced movements, he opened a panel on the android's back that the technicians had missed. It was hidden, meant only for emergency access. "The encryption lock engaged because of a power surge," Minho said, more to himself than anyone else. "But the emergency bypass is still active. You just need to know where to look." His fingers moved quickly. He rerouted 3 connections, bypassed 2 security protocols, and touched 2 contact points simultaneously. The android's eyes flickered. Then they glowed with warm blue light. The android sat up in his hands. "Princess Nari, why are you crying?" Nari gasped. Then she laughed and grabbed the android, hugging it tightly. "You're back. You're back." The plaza fell silent. Even the merchants stopped calling out their wares. Everyone stared at the human maintenance worker kneeling on the royal stairs. The royal technicians looked at each other in shock. 3 weeks of work, done in under 2 minutes. Empress Hyejin stood very still. Her eyes were locked on Minho. He was putting his tools away, smiling at the happy child. He didn't seem to realize he had just done something extraordinary. Captain Sora leaned close to the Empress. "Your Majesty?" Hyejin didn't look away from Minho. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but intense. "That man. I want to know everything about him, where he came from, what he can do. Everything." Sora nodded and immediately began speaking into her communication device. Minho stood up, closing his toolbox. He nodded politely to the Empress and turned to leave. Just another job done. Just another problem solved. But as he walked away, he felt the weight of the Empress's gaze on his back. He had no idea that his life had just changed forever. He had no idea that 2 minutes of work would reshape the future of his entire species. He just knew a kid had stopped crying, and that felt good. Behind him, Nari hugged her android and laughed. The Empress watched the human disappear into the crowd, and Captain Sora made a call that would begin the most important investigation of her career. The sun climbed higher. The plaza returned to its normal noise and activity. But something had shifted, something small but significant. A human had fixed what the Empire's best could not, and the Empress had noticed. Captain Sora sat in her office high above the city, staring at the holographic display floating in front of her. The file on Kang Minho was surprisingly thin for someone who had just accomplished the impossible. She had expected to find something remarkable in his background. Instead, she found the most ordinary life imaginable. Born on Earth Colony 7, a mining settlement on the edge of human territory. Parents were factory workers. 2 siblings. Average grades in school. Joined the Human Defense Corps at age 18. Served 6 years as a maintenance engineer on military vessels. Honorable discharge after the border war with the Kraith Horde ended. Immigrated to the capital world seeking better work opportunities. Current occupation: Level 3 maintenance technician in the Plaza District. Nothing special, nothing that explained what she had witnessed. Sora leaned back in her chair. The Kraith conflict had been barely worth noticing from the Empire's perspective. A minor dispute between two young species on the frontier. The Empire had mediated a peace treaty and forgotten about it within weeks. But humans had fought in that war. Mingyo had been there. She pulled up his military records. Most of it was classified by human authorities, but she had ways of accessing such things. What she found made her pause. Mingyo had served on the HDCS Integrity, a destroyer that had seen heavy combat. His official role was maintaining life support and power systems. But in his file were 17 commendations for creative problem-solving under fire. One report from his commanding officer caught her attention. Engineer Kang repeatedly demonstrated an unusual ability to repair damaged systems using improvised methods. On 3 occasions, he restored critical systems that other engineers had declared unsalvageable. His approach does not follow standard protocols, but his results are undeniable. Recommend advancement. Sora tapped her fingers on the desk. Creative problem-solving. Improvised methods. The same thing she had seen in the plaza. She needed to see more. She needed to understand how he thought. For the next 5 days, Sora followed Minho. Not personally, she had duties to attend to, but through surveillance drones and field agents. She watched everything he did. On the first day, Minho fixed a water purification system in the residential district. The system had been broken for a week. 3 different repair teams had tried and failed. The parts needed were on backorder from the manufacturing world, 2 months away. Residents were angry and frustrated. Minho studied the system for 20 minutes. Then he went to a nearby recycling center and returned with components from completely different machines. He built an adapter using materials that had nothing to do with water purification. Within 2 hours, clean water flowed again. The residents cheered. The repair team stood in stunned silence. On the second day, a diplomatic shuttle developed a navigation error. The shuttle belonged to Ambassador Tech from the Council of 12. Without proper navigation, the ambassador would miss a crucial meeting. The palace mechanics worked on it frantically, running diagnostics and checking every system. Everything appeared normal, but the shuttle refused to calculate routes correctly. Minho was nearby, replacing power cells in a street lamp. He overheard the mechanics arguing about what to do. He walked over and asked if he could look. The mechanics, desperate and out of options, stepped aside. Minho didn't run diagnostics. He didn't check the obvious systems. Instead, he opened a panel that housed the environmental controls. He found a small magnetic component that had shifted slightly out of position. It wasn't part of the navigation system at all, but its magnetic field was interfering with the navigation sensors. He adjusted it by 3 centimeters. The navigation system worked perfectly. The mechanics asked how he knew where to look. Minho shrugged and said, "I could hear a weird hum, figured something was vibrating that shouldn't be." On the 3rd day, Minho went to lunch at a small restaurant in the human quarter. The restaurant was struggling. Their industrial food fabricator had broken down, and they couldn't afford the repair fees. They were using basic cooking equipment instead, which meant they could only serve simple meals. The owner, an older human woman named Yunji, was trying to save money to buy a new fabricator. Minho offered to look at the old one. Yunji shook her head. 5 specialists looked at it. They all said the same thing. The core processor is dead, can't be fixed, only replaced, and a new one costs more than I make in a year. Let me try anyway, Minho said. He spent his entire lunch break working on the fabricator. He found that the core processor wasn't dead. It was locked in a diagnostic loop because of corrupted memory files. But the memory was sealed and couldn't be accessed without specialized equipment that cost a fortune. Minho didn't have that equipment, so he built something using his multi-tool, a datapad and wire from the restaurant's lighting system. It shouldn't have worked. The components weren't compatible, but somehow Minho made them talk to each other. He cleared the corrupted files manually, one by one, using his improvised device. The fabricator hummed to life. Yunji cried and hugged him. Sora watched all of this through drone footage. She watched Minho eat his meals alone, usually just simple noodles or rice. She watched him return to his tiny apartment each night, exhausted. She watched him send money transfers back to Earth Colony 7 every week, leaving himself barely enough to survive on. On the 4th day, Sora decided to see him work in person. She disguised herself in plain clothes and positioned herself near a transit station where Minho was scheduled to repair a ticketing system. She watched as he arrived with his toolbox and began examining the broken machine. A young Velrathi woman approached him. She looked frustrated. "This thing has been broken for 3 days. I've been late to work every day because I have to walk to the next station." "I'll get it working," Minho said. "That's what the last repair person said." Minho smiled. "I'm not the last repair person." Sora watched him work. His hands moved with certainty, but his methods seemed chaotic. He didn't follow the repair manual that other technicians used. He opened panels in unusual orders. He tested connections that weren't part of the standard diagnostic routine. But there was a logic to it, even if Sora couldn't immediately understand it. 15 minutes later, the ticketing system worked. The young woman thanked him profusely. Minho just nodded and moved on to his next job. Sora followed at a distance. She watched him fix a broken charging station, a malfunctioning security camera, and a jammed door mechanism. Each time his approach was different. Each time he succeeded where others had failed. On the 5th day, Sora witnessed something that made her truly understand. A maintenance crew was trying to fix a large cargo drone that had crashed in a loading area. The drone was used to move supplies around the Plaza district. Without it, dozens of shops couldn't receive their deliveries. 5 technicians stood around the drone, arguing about what to do. The drone's anti-gravity generator was damaged, and the control system had fried. Multiple systems had failed at once. The crew supervisor was calling for a replacement drone. It would take a week to arrive. Until then, everything would have to be moved by hand. Minho happened to walk past on his way to another job. He stopped and looked at the drone. "That's not fixable," one technician said to him. "Too much damage? Multiple critical failures." Minho walked around the drone slowly. He touched certain panels, listening to sounds that Sora couldn't hear. Then he opened his toolbox. "What are you doing?" the supervisor asked. "Fixing it. I told you it's not fixable. We already decided." "You decided wrong," Minho said simply without arrogance, just stating a fact. The crew watched in disbelief as Minho began working. He didn't try to fix everything. That would be impossible. Instead, he salvaged components from the damaged systems and used them to patch together the critical systems. He rerouted power flows. He bypassed broken circuits. He made 3 different systems work together in ways they were never designed to work. It took him 4 hours. The crew watched the entire time, first with skepticism, then with growing fascination. Sora watched too, recording everything. When Minho finished, the drone lifted smoothly into the air. It wasn't perfect, there were some systems still offline, but it could fly and carry cargo. It would work until a proper replacement arrived. The supervisor stammered his thanks. The crew looked at Minho like he was some kind of wizard. Minho just packed his tools and left. That evening, Sora compiled her report for Empress Heejin. She included all the footage, all the witness statements, all the analysis. But she also included her own conclusion. She wrote, "Your Majesty, this human does not repair machines the way we do. Our technicians follow procedures. They consult manuals. They use the correct tools for each specific task. They fix things the right way. But when the right way doesn't work, they stop. They call for replacements or specialized help." Minho does not stop. He approaches each problem as if the rules don't exist. He sees patterns we cannot see. He makes connections between unrelated systems. He improvises solutions that should not work but do. I believe this is not unique to him. I believe this is how humans think. They do not accept that something is impossible. They find another way, and that, Your Majesty, may be the most dangerous and valuable trait any species can possess. She sent the report and waited. The response came within minutes. Bring him to the Minho stood at the gates of the Imperial Palace holding a small bag containing everything he owned. The message had arrived the night before, delivered by a palace courier who looked surprised to be visiting the human quarter. The message was simple: report to the Royal Engineering Wing tomorrow morning. You have been selected for a position. He had barely slept. This opportunity would change his life. The pay alone was 5 times what he made now. He could send more money home. His parents could stop working double shifts. His sister could afford proper school. But he was also terrified. What if he wasn't good enough? What if the Plaza incident had been luck? The palace guard checked his identification and waved him through. Minho walked across courtyards that could fit his entire neighborhood. Everything was marble and crystal. fountains taller than buildings, gardens filled with plants from a dozen worlds. He felt very small. A young Velrathi woman met him at the entrance to the engineering wing. She was shorter than most Velrathi, with kind eyes and an easy smile. She bowed slightly. "You must be Kang Minho." "I am Yuna. I work as an apprentice here. I will show you around." "Thank you," Minho said, bowing back. As they walked, Yuna explained the structure of the engineering wing. There were 50 master technicians, each overseeing teams of apprentices and junior technicians. They maintained everything in the palace, from the smallest door lock to the massive environmental systems that kept the entire complex comfortable. "You will work under Master Technician Juan," Yuna said. Her tone was carefully neutral, but Minho caught something in her voice. "A warning, maybe." "Is he difficult?" "He is traditional. He believes there is one correct way to do things. The Velrathi way. He does not think highly of other species, especially those newer to the Empire." She glanced at Minho apologetically. "I'm sorry to say this, but you should know. He did not want you here." The Empress insisted. Minho nodded. He had dealt with prejudice before. Most Velrathi were polite, but many believed humans were primitive, too emotional, too chaotic, not suited for serious work. They entered a massive workshop. Dozens of technicians worked at various stations, surrounded by tools and machines that Minho had never seen before. The technology here was far more advanced than anything in the Plaza district. Master Technician Juan stood at the center of the workshop. He was tall and thin, with perfectly groomed appearance and immaculate robes. When he saw Minho, his expression soured. "So the human." Juan looked Minho up and down like he was examining a broken machine. "The Empress believes you have talent." "I disagree. I believe you performed a simple repair in the plaza and impressed people who do not understand engineering. But I follow orders. You will work here. We will see how long you last." The other technicians watched silently. Some looked sympathetic. Others seemed to share Juan's skepticism. "I will work hard," Minho said simply. "Yes, you will." Juan gestured to a datapad on a nearby table. "The central climate regulator for the palace has been malfunctioning for 4 months. It controls temperature, air quality, and humidity for the entire complex. We have attempted repairs 7 times. Each time we achieve temporary improvement, but the core problem persists. The best engineers in the Empire have examined it. Their conclusion is that the system is too old and too complex. They recommend building a new one, but that would take years and cost more than your planet's entire economy." Juan smiled coldly. "I want you to fix it. You have 1 week. When you fail, and you will fail, we will reassign you to cleaning duties where you belong." Minho took the datapad. The information on it was overwhelming. Schematics, diagnostic reports, repair logs. The climate regulator was enormous, spanning multiple levels beneath the palace. It had been installed over 300 years ago by engineers whose techniques were now lost to time. "Where is the regulator located?" Minho asked. "Sublevel 7. Yuna will show you." Juan turned his back on Minho, dismissing him. "I expect your failure report in 7 days." Yuna led Minho down through the palace. They descended stairs and took lifts that went deep underground. The air grew warmer. The walls changed from polished marble to rough stone and metal. "Master Juan is trying to make you fail," Yuna said quietly. "This task is impossible. Everyone knows this. Even the Empress knows this. By giving it to you, he proves that you are not as skilled as people claim." "But the palace needs climate control," Minho said. "Yes, the current system works at about 60% efficiency. It is uncomfortable sometimes, but not dangerous. A new system will be built eventually, but not soon." They reached sub-level 7. The doors opened onto a vast chamber that took Minho's breath away. The climate regulator filled the space like a sleeping metal giant. Pipes as wide as his body, machinery that hummed and clicked, crystal matrices that glowed with soft light. Everything was connected in ways that made no obvious sense.
"I will leave you to examine it," Yuna said.
"I must return to my own work, but I will bring you food later. And Minho, do not feel bad if you cannot fix this. No one could." Minho stood alone in the chamber. The sound of the machinery surrounded him like breathing. He set down his bag and tools and just listened, felt, observed. Then he began to work. For 3 days, Minho barely slept. He brought a sleeping roll and stayed in the chamber. Yuna brought him food twice a day, staying to talk for a few minutes each time. She told him about her family, her dreams of becoming a master technician someday, her love of puzzles. Minho shared stories about Earth, about his sister, about the war. Other technicians came to watch sometimes. Some mocked him openly. Others watched with curiosity. One older technician, a woman named Isul, brought him better diagnostic tools without saying a word. Minho studied every centimeter of the climate regulator. He read every repair log. He traced every power conduit. Slowly, he began to understand the problem. The engineers who built this system had been geniuses. They had created something elegant and efficient. But 300 years of repairs had changed it. Each repair followed proper procedures, but each one added complexity. Each one made the system slightly less like what the original designers intended. The climate regulator wasn't broken. It was confused. It was trying to be the machine it was designed to be. But 3 centuries of modifications had buried that original design under layers of well-intentioned changes. On the 4th day, Minho did something that horrified every technician who witnessed it. He began removing components. Not replacing them, just removing them. Systems that had been added over the decades. Systems that supposedly improved efficiency. Systems that were considered critical. "What are you doing?" one technician shouted. "Those systems are necessary." "No, they're not," Minho said. "They're fighting each other. The original design didn't need them. You cannot just remove critical systems. They're not critical. They're just complicated." Word spread quickly through the engineering wing. The human was destroying the climate regulator. Master Huan arrived with a dozen technicians, ready to stop Minho and prove his incompetence once and for all. But when they arrived, they found something unexpected. The chamber was cooler. The air was clearer. The machinery was running more quietly than it had in years. Minho was covered in grease and sweat. He was connecting power lines directly from the primary systems to the distribution networks, bypassing 12 different regulation systems that had been added over the centuries. He was rerouting airflow through the original channels, removing the complicated, baffling systems that later engineers had installed. He was stripping the machine back to its core design. It shouldn't work. The regulation systems were considered essential. The baffling prevented turbulence. Everything he was removing had been added for good reasons. But it was working. Huan watched in silence as Minho worked through the 4th, 5th, and 6th days. Other technicians gathered to watch. Even the Empress heard about it and came to observe from the observation platform above the chamber. On the 7th day, Minho made the final connection. The climate regulator hummed. Then it settled into a smooth, quiet rhythm that no one had heard in living memory. The temperature throughout the palace stabilized perfectly. Air quality reached optimal levels. The humidity balanced. Isul, the older technician, ran diagnostics. She looked at her scanner in disbelief. "It is running at 98% efficiency. That is better than when it was new." Master Huan's face went through several emotions. Shock, disbelief, anger. Finally, something that might have been respect. He walked down to where Minho stood. "How?" Huan asked. Just that one word. Minho was too tired to be diplomatic. "You kept trying to improve it. But it didn't need improvement. It needed to be itself. That makes no sense." "It does to me." Huan stared at the climate regulator. 300 years of Velrothi engineering tradition said that systems should be maintained by adding improvements, by enhancing capabilities, by building upon what came before. This human had violated every principle Huan believed in, and it had worked better than anything Huan had ever done. "Master Huan," Yuna said softly. "The Empress is here." They all looked up. Empress Hyojin stood on the observation platform, Captain Sora beside her. She had been watching for the past hour. "Now don't cry, little one. I'll fix your android part." 4. The crisis Minho had been working in the palace for 3 weeks when everything changed. He was having breakfast in the technician's dining hall with Yuna when the alarms began. Not the loud emergency alarms, but the subtle ones that only palace staff could hear. A deep pulsing tone that meant something serious was happening. Yuna's communication device chirped urgently. She read the message and her face went pale. "Communication blackout in the outer sectors. Multiple systems failing. All senior technicians are being called to the Imperial Senate chamber immediately." They ran together through the palace corridors. Other technicians rushed in the same direction, all looking confused and worried. When they reached the Senate chamber, hundreds of people were already there. Senators from all 12 member species filled their seats. Empress Hee-jin stood at the central podium, her face grave. Captain Sora stood behind her, hand on her weapon. An enormous holographic display floated in the center of the chamber. It showed a map of the Empire's territory. Red zones spread across the map like a disease. Each red zone represented a sector where quantum communication had failed. As they watched, more zones turned red. Elder Suho, the high engineer of the Empire, stood beside the display. He was ancient even by Velrathi standards, over 200 years old. His voice was weak but carried through the silent chamber. We are experiencing a catastrophic failure of the quantum communication network. 23 sectors have gone dark in the past 6 hours. We estimate 40 more will fail within the next day. Murmurs of shock and fear rippled through the chamber. The quantum communication network was the foundation of the Empire. It allowed instant communication across light years of space. Without it, each world was isolated. Ships could not receive navigation data. Military forces could not coordinate. The Empire would fracture into separate, disconnected systems. A senator from the industrial world stood up. How long to repair? Elder Suho's expression was grim. The network is over 10,000 years old. Parts of it were built by engineers whose knowledge is lost to us. We have sent repair teams to the central network core, but the encryption layers are beyond our current understanding. We estimate 8 to 12 months for full restoration, if we can restore it at all. 8 months? Another senator's voice cracked with panic. Do you understand what will happen? Supply chains will collapse. Colonies will run out of essential resources. Without coordination, our defense fleets are vulnerable. The Kraith Horde could launch attacks and we would not know until too late. Millions will die! The chamber erupted into shouting. Senators blamed each other. Some demanded Elder Suho be replaced. Others called for emergency measures. The Empire was tearing itself apart before the crisis had even fully developed. Empress Hee-jin raised her hand. Silence fell immediately. When she spoke, her voice was steel. We will not panic. We will not turn on each other. We will solve this problem. Elder Suho, what do you need? Time, Your Majesty. And mine's far greater than mine. The network's core encryption was designed to be unbreakable. That makes it very difficult to repair when something goes wrong inside it. Master Technician Huan was in the crowd. He stepped forward and bowed. Your Majesty, if I may suggest, we should assemble every master engineer in the Empire. Pool our knowledge. Perhaps together we can find a solution faster. Do it, Hee-jin commanded. Pull resources from every world. This is our highest priority. The meeting continued for hours. Plans were made. Resources allocated. But Minho could see the fear in everyone's eyes. They did not really believe they could fix this. They were preparing for the Empire's collapse. As the meeting ended and people filed out, Minho found himself walking near the Empress. Captain Sora noticed him and stepped closer to Hee-jin, protective. But the Empress saw Minho and stopped. The human technician. Kung Minho, yes? Minho bowed. Yes, Your Majesty. What do you think? Can this be fixed? Every technician nearby stopped moving. Stopped breathing. A human, just weeks into palace service, was being asked his opinion by the Empress herself. Master Huan looked mortified. Minho thought carefully before answering. Your Majesty, I do not know enough about the quantum network to say, but I learned something fixing the climate regulator. Sometimes old systems break in strange ways, not because they are damaged, but because they are confused. If I could see the network core, maybe I could understand. A tall senator nearby laughed mockingly. The network core is the most complex machine ever built. It takes years of study just to understand the basics. You think you can look at it and just understand? No, Minho said honestly. But I can try. Empress Hee-jin studied him. Then she looked at Elder Suho. Would it hurt to let him observe? Elder Suho looked deeply offended. Your Majesty, the network core is sacred. Only those trained in the ancient engineering disciplines are permitted to approach it. This human has no such training. That is precisely why I want him there, Hee-jin said. Everyone else will look at it the way they were trained to look. He will see it differently. What do we have to lose? Elder Suho wanted to argue, but he could see the determination in the Empress's eyes. He bowed stiffly. As you command, Your Majesty. 2 hours later, Minho stood in a place he never thought he would see. The central network core was buried deep beneath the Imperial Palace in chambers that predated the current buildings by thousands of years. He descended with Elder Suho, a dozen master engineers, and Captain Sora, who insisted on accompanying them. The chamber was like a cathedral. Crystalline structures rose hundreds of meters high, glowing with soft blue light. Quantum processors hummed with a sound that Minho felt in his bones rather than heard. Energy flowed through conduits carved into the ancient stone. Everything pulsed with a rhythm like a heartbeat. "This is older than our recorded history," Elder Suho said quietly. "We maintain it, but we do not truly understand how it was built. We know the principles, but the specific implementation, it is beyond us." Master engineers worked at various stations, running diagnostics, checking systems, consulting ancient texts. They moved with reverence, touching the machines as if they were holy relics. In a way, Minho supposed they were. He walked through the chamber slowly. No one stopped him. They were too busy with their own work. Minho did not touch anything. He just observed, listened, felt the vibrations in the floor. Something was wrong. Not broken, wrong. The network was functioning, but not normally. It was doing something, and whatever it was doing was causing the failures. After 2 hours of silent observation, Minho approached Elder Suho. "Can I ask a question?" "Of course," Elder Suho said, though he looked annoyed at being interrupted. "You said the network is failing, but it looks like it is working to me. Everything is active. Everything is processing. Maybe it is not broken. Maybe it is doing exactly what it thinks it should do." Elder Suho frowned. "What do you mean?" The climate regulator was not really broken. It was confused by all the changes made to it. Maybe this is the same. Maybe the network thinks there is danger and it is protecting itself. That is impossible. The network is a machine. It does not think. It does not feel danger. Then why is it behaving like it is scared? The question hung in the air. Several master engineers stopped working to listen. "Explain," Elder Suho demanded. Minho pointed to the central crystal matrix. "Look at the activity patterns. They are not random failures. They are organized. The network is shutting down outer systems and pulling resources inward toward the core, like an animal curling up to protect itself. It is not dying. It is hiding. Machines do not hide. Maybe this one does." Master Technician Juan had been listening. He approached Elder Suho. "Hi, Engineer, may I speak freely?" "Go ahead." "When we built the climate regulator centuries ago, we created something with feedback loops and self-correction systems. Over time, those systems became so complex that they began to anticipate problems, not intelligently but in a pattern-based way. If the quantum network is old enough, complex enough, could it have developed similar behavior?" Elder Suho looked troubled. "The ancient texts speak of the network having a spirit. We always thought that was poetic language. But what if it was literal? What if the network has become something more than we realized?" Captain Sora stepped forward. "If the network is protecting itself, what is it protecting itself from?" Minho walked to a diagnostic station and studied the data flowing across the screen. He did not understand most of it, but he looked for patterns, something that did not belong. An anomaly, there. A tiny irregularity in the data stream. It appeared and disappeared so quickly that the automated systems had not flagged it. But it kept appearing, over and over, a rhythm that did not match the network's natural patterns. "There," Minho pointed. "Something is in the network. Something foreign. The network detected it and is trying to isolate it by shutting down compromised sectors." Elder Suho rushed to the station. He adjusted the display, filtering the data in ways that made the anomaly more visible. His face went white. "By the ancestors. That is viral code. Hostile programming. Someone has attacked the network." Panic spread among the engineers. If the network was under attack, repairs would be even more difficult. They would need to find the virus, understand it, remove it, all while the network don't cry, little one. "I'll fix your android part 5. The revelation Minho sat on the floor of the network core chamber, surrounded by tools and equipment that he barely understood. It had been 6 hours since his suggestion to talk to the network, and he still had no clear plan. The master engineers worked around him, trying traditional repair methods that accomplished nothing. More sectors went dark every hour. The Empire was running out of time. Yuna sat beside him, having refused to leave despite Master Juan's orders to return to regular duties. She brought him food that he did not eat and water that he sipped without thinking. Her presence was comforting, even if she could not help directly. "How do you talk to something that is not alive?" she asked quietly. "I do not know," Minho admitted. "When I was in the military, I worked with ship AI systems. They were not truly intelligent, but they had personality quirks, things they preferred, ways they responded better to certain inputs. The other engineers treated them like machines. I treated them like crew members. It worked better? So you think the network has preferences? Maybe it has been operating for 10,000 years. That is time enough to develop patterns. Habits almost. Una thought about this. When I was small, my grandmother had a garden. The plants did not think or feel, but she talked to them anyway. She said they grew better when she did. My father said it was nonsense, but her garden was always the most beautiful. Minho looked at her. Maybe your grandmother was onto something. He stood up and approached Elder Suho, who was reviewing diagnostic data with increasing frustration. "Hi, engineer, I need to access the human communication protocols." "Human protocols? Why?" "Humans developed technology for interfacing with artificial intelligence systems. We had to. Our early AI were unstable and hard to control. We learned to communicate with them in ways that felt more natural. Less like programming, more like conversation." Elder Suho looked skeptical. "The quantum network is not a human AI. It operates on completely different principles. But maybe the approach can work anyway. Communication is communication." Master Huan had been listening. "It cannot hurt to try, High Engineer." "We are failing with traditional methods," Elder Suho sighed. "Very well. What do you need?" "My ship's toolkit is in storage at the spaceport. It has the interface equipment I used during the war. Can someone retrieve it?" Captain Sora stepped forward. "I will send a team immediately." While they waited, Minho studied the network more carefully. He needed to understand what it was feeling, if feeling was even the right word. The patterns were defensive, protective, like an immune system fighting infection. The virus was small, subtle, designed to corrupt data slowly over time. But the network had detected it and responded by isolating infected regions. The problem was that the network was isolating too much. It was overreacting, shutting down sectors that showed even the smallest irregularity, like a body attacking itself in the process of fighting disease. "We need to calm it down," Minho said to himself. "Make it feel safe enough to stop hiding." An older engineer named Quan overheard him. "How do you make a machine feel safe?" "By removing the threat. But first by showing it that we see the threat too, that we understand, that we are trying to help." 3 hours later, Captain Sora's team returned with Minho's toolkit. It was a battered metal case containing equipment that looked primitive compared to the advanced Velrathi technology surrounding them. Cognitive translation modules, emotional pattern analyzers, interface bridges designed to help human engineers communicate with unstable AI systems. Elder Suho examined the equipment with barely hidden disdain. "These are very basic tools." "Yes," Minho agreed. "But that might be exactly what we need. The network is old. Maybe it responds better to simple communication than complex programming." He began setting up the equipment, connecting it to one of the network's peripheral access points. The Velrathi engineers watched with fascination and doubt. This was technology they had never encountered before. Not because it was advanced, but because it approached the problem from a completely different direction. In human military, we had AI that controlled weapon systems, Minho explained as he worked. These AI had to make life and death decisions very quickly. Sometimes they got confused or scared. Yes, scared. We use that word because it described their behavior better than any technical term. When they got scared, they made mistakes. So we developed ways to communicate reassurance, to show them we understood the danger, to help them process threats calmly. "You treated weapons systems like children," Elder Suho said, somewhere between amazed and horrified. "We treated them like what they were, something between a machine and a mind. Not fully either, but aspects of both." Minho finished the connection. The cognitive translation module hummed to life. On the display screen, patterns began to form. Visual representations of the network's activity translated into terms that human neural patterns could interpret more easily. It was not perfect. The network was far more complex than any AI system this equipment was designed for, but it gave Minho something he could work with. The patterns looked like waves on an ocean, turbulent, chaotic, defensive. "It is definitely scared," Minho said. Look at these spikes. That is not normal activity. That is panic. He adjusted the interface, trying to send a simple signal back into the network. A pattern that meant, I see you. I understand. I am here to help. The network did not respond at first. Then slowly the turbulence decreased slightly in the sectors near the interface point. Just a fraction. But it was something. It heard you, Yuna whispered, amazed. Minho sent another signal. This time he tried to communicate awareness of the threat. He highlighted the viral code in a way that showed he recognized it as the enemy. Not the network. Not the sectors shutting down. Just the virus. The network's activity changed. The defensive patterns shifted. Instead of blindly isolating everything, it began to focus more precisely on the infected areas. It was still protecting itself, but with more control. By the ancestors, Elder Suho breathed. It is responding. Over the next hour, Minho continued the slow conversation. Each signal was simple. I see the threat. I am removing it. You are safe. Trust me. The master engineers worked alongside him now, following his guidance. When Minho identified infected code, they carefully extracted and isolated it. When the network showed signs of panic, Minho sent calming signals. When it started to shut down too many sectors, he gently redirected its attention to the real threats. It was like soothing a frightened animal. Patient. Calm. Consistent. Slowly, sector by sector, the network began to stabilize. But the work was exhausting. Minho had been awake for over 20 hours. His hands shook. His eyes burned. The cognitive translation module required constant attention. If the connection broke, they would lose all progress. Yuna brought him water. You need to rest. Cannot stop. If I break the connection now, the network might panic again. Then tell me what to do. Let me help maintain the connection while you rest for a few minutes. Minho wanted to refuse, but he could barely focus. He showed Yuna how to monitor the translation module, how to watch for warning signs, how to send basic reassurance signals if the network became agitated. Just keep it calm, he said. I will rest for 10 minutes. Just 10. He sat down against the wall and closed his eyes. Sleep took him immediately. He woke to urgent voices. His 10 minutes had become 2 hours. Master Huan was gently shaking his shoulder. Minho, you need to see this. He scrambled to his feet. At the translation station, Yuna sat monitoring the displays. But the patterns had changed. They were no longer turbulent. They moved in smooth, almost peaceful rhythms. What happened? The network started responding to Yuna, Master Huan said, wonder in his voice. She has been communicating with it for the past hour, teaching it to identify and isolate the viral code more efficiently. It is learning. Minho, it is actually learning. Elder Suho stood nearby, tears running down his ancient face. In all my years, I never thought I would see this. The network, our oldest machine, responding like it was alive. Minho watched the displays. The network was still finding and removing infected code, but now it was doing so systematically, efficiently, and most importantly, it was no longer shutting down healthy sectors. It had learned to trust them. Over the next 5 days, Minho and Yuna worked in shifts. Other engineers joined them, learning the communication techniques. Slowly, they helped the network purge every trace of the virus. Sectors that had gone dark began coming back online. Communication was restored across the empire. On the 6th day, Elder Suho declared the network fully recovered. More than recovered, it was operating with greater efficiency than before. The conversation with the network had somehow optimized its processes. It had learned not just to remove the virus, but to monitor itself better. How is this possible? Elder Suho asked. How can a machine improve itself through conversation? Maybe it was always capable of this, Minho said. Maybe it just needed someone to treat it like it mattered, like it was more than just a tool. Empress Haijin visited the network core in person. She stood before the massive crystalline structures with reverence. You saved the Empire, Minho. You and your strange human approach to machines. Yuna, help, don't cry, little one. I'll fix your android part 6, the conspiracy captain. Sora walked through the dark corridors beneath the Imperial Palace, following a trail of evidence that grew more disturbing with each discovery. It had been 2 weeks since the quantum network crisis was resolved. 2 weeks since Minho became a hero across the Empire, and 2 weeks since someone began hunting him. The virus in the network had not been random. Her investigation had traced it to a sophisticated operation with resources and knowledge that could only come from within the Empire's highest levels. Someone with access to ancient engineering secrets, someone with power. She reached a secure archive room deep in the intelligence division. Commander Jiho waited for her there, his face grim. He was head of internal security, responsible for protecting the Empire from threats within its own borders. "Show me," Sora said without greeting. Jiho activated a holographic display. Documents appeared, floating in the air. Communications, financial records, movement logs. We call them the Purists. They have existed for centuries, but always as a minor philosophical group. They believe the Velrathi Empire has grown weak by incorporating other species. They want to return to the old ways when only Velrathi held power. "I know of them," Sora said. "They are loud but harmless, publishing papers and holding meetings." That is what we thought. But 3 months ago they went silent. No more public meetings, no more papers. We assumed they had disbanded. Jiho gestured to the documents. We were wrong. They went underground, and they recruited someone with access to the network core. A face appeared in the display. Sora's breath caught. "Master Engineer Deho, but he is one of Elder Suho's most trusted engineers. He has served for 40 years. Yes. And he has been feeding information to the Purists for at least 10 of those years. The virus was his creation. The plan was elegant. Create a crisis so severe that the Empire would fracture. In the chaos, the Purists would seize power, claiming they were the only ones who could restore order. But Minho stopped it. Exactly. And that made him their greatest enemy. He is human, everything they hate. And he proved that humans can accomplish what the Velrathi cannot. To them, that is unforgivable. Sora studied the documents. The trail of evidence was clear. Deho had been careful, but not careful enough. "Where is Deho now?" "We arrested him yesterday quietly. He is in detention." "But Sora, there is more." Jiho pulled up new information. "Deho gave us names." "The Purists have over 300 members throughout the Empire. Politicians, military officers, engineers. They have infiltrated every level of government." 300? Sora felt cold. That was far more than a fringe group. That was a conspiracy capable of overthrowing the Empress. We are arresting the key members now. But Sora, before we took Deho, he sent a final message to his contacts. It was a kill order. For Kang Minho. Sora was moving before Jiho finished speaking. She ran through the corridors, her hand on her communication device. "All palace security, this is Captain Sora. Lock down the engineering wing immediately. No one enters or leaves. Guards to Kang Minho's location now." She burst into the engineering wing 3 minutes later, weapon drawn. The scene that greeted her was chaos. The central workshop was filled with smoke. Blast marks scarred the walls. Technicians huddled behind equipment, some injured. In the center of the room, Yuna stood in front of Minho, a metal tool gripped in her hands like a weapon. 3 figures in dark clothes lay unconscious on the floor. Security guards were just arriving from other sections. What happened? Sora demanded. Master Juan stepped forward, his robes torn and singed. "Assassins. They entered through the maintenance tunnels. 3 of them. They used some kind of plasma weapon." He pointed to Yuna. "The apprentice stopped them. She is braver than I would have believed." Sora looked at Yuna in amazement. The young woman was shaking but still standing protectively in front of Minho. "Are you injured?" "No, Captain. But Minho is." Sora saw it then. Minho sat on the floor behind Yuna, blood spreading across his shoulder. His face was pale but calm. "Not too bad," he said weakly. "Just got clipped by one of their shots. Medical team to the engineering wing immediately." Sora barked into her communicator. She knelt beside Minho. "You are very lucky to be alive. Yuna saved me." She threw a heavy wrench at the first assassin, hit him right in the head. Then she grabbed his weapon and I do not really know what happened after that. Everything got very confusing. Yuna finally lowered her makeshift weapon. "I just did what I had to do. They were going to kill him." Sora looked at the unconscious assassins, professional killers by the look of their equipment. And a young apprentice engineer had stopped all 3 of them through sheer determination and improvisation. Perhaps she had learned that from Minho. The medical team arrived and began treating Minho's wound. It was serious but not life-threatening. The plasma blast had burned through his shoulder, missing major arteries by centimeters. "You need to go to the medical wing," the lead medic said. "I need to finish calibrating the atmospheric processors first. Minho protested weakly. You need to not die, Yuna said firmly. The processors can wait. As they prepared to move Minho, Empress Hyejin arrived with a full security detail. Her face was fury and ice combined. She looked at the destruction, at the injured technicians, at Minho being treated by medics. Captain Sora report. Sora explained everything. The conspiracy, the arrests, the assassination attempt. The Empress listened in silence, her expression growing colder with each word. 300 traitors, Hyejin said quietly. Dangerously. In my empire, plotting my downfall, attempting to murder those under my protection. She walked to where Minho lay. I am sorry. This happened because you helped us. You saved us and we repaid you with threats and violence. Not your fault, Your Majesty, Minho said. Bad people exist everywhere. Yes, but I should have protected you better. She turned to Sora. I want the Purists destroyed. Every member, every asset, every hidden cell, I want them erased from existence. Yes, Your Majesty. And Captain Sora, I want you personally responsible for Minho's protection until this threat is eliminated. He does not leave your sight. Of course, Your Majesty. Hyejin looked around the workshop, at the frightened technicians, at Yuna, still shaking from adrenaline, at Master Huan, trying to comfort his injured apprentices. This is my failure. I knew there were those who opposed incorporating new species. I thought they were only words. I did not take them seriously enough. She raised her voice so everyone could hear. Let this be known throughout the Empire. Those who attacked today did not just attack Kang Minho. They attacked everything the Empire stands for. We are not strong because we are pure. We are strong because we embrace all who wish to build something greater than themselves. These purists fear change. They fear progress. They fear anyone who proves their beliefs wrong. She pointed to Minho. This human did what our best engineers could not. Does that make him a threat? No, it makes him valuable. It makes him exactly what we need. And anyone who cannot see that is no true member of this empire. The medics prepared to transport Minho to the medical wing. Yuna insisted on going with him. Sora assigned 4 guards to escort them. As they left, Master Huan approached the Empress. Your Majesty, if I may speak? Go ahead. I was one of those who doubted Minho, who thought humans were inferior. I was wrong, and I suspect I am not the only engineer who felt that way. Many of us need to rethink our assumptions. Yes, Hyejin agreed. Many do. I am glad you recognize this, Master Huan. Help spread that recognition. Teach your apprentices to value competence over origin, to see potential rather than species. In the medical wing, doctors worked on Minho's shoulder. The wound was clean and would heal well with proper treatment. Yuna sat beside him, refusing to leave despite the doctor's suggestions that she rest. You did not have to do that, Minho said. You could have been killed. You are my friend, Yuna said simply. Friends protect each other. You are very brave. I learned from you. You fix impossible things because you do not accept that they are impossible. I protected you because I do not accept that friends should die when I can prevent it. Minho smiled despite the pain. Fair enough. Captain Sora entered the medical room. The Empress has declared martial law within the palace. We are rounding up all known Purist members. But Minho, there may be others we do not know about. You will need protection until we are certain the threat is eliminated. For how long? Weeks, maybe longer. Minho sighed. I just want to fix things and go home. I know. But sometimes being good at fixing things makes you important. And important people have enemies. Sora's expression softened slightly. But you also have friends. More than you realize. Every technician in the engineering wing volunteered to help protect you. They respect what you have done. Over the next week, the conspiracy unraveled. Daiho and 50 other purists were arrested. Documents were seized. Plans were discovered. The plot had been extensive. They had intended to create multiple crises across the empire, fracturing it into warring factions that they could control. But their plan had one fatal flaw. They assumed that only Velrathi could solve Velrathi problems. They never considered that a human with strange ideas and improvised solutai. 3 months had passed since the assassination attempt. Minho's shoulder had healed completely, leaving only a small scar that he barely noticed. Life in the palace had returned to normal, or as normal as it could be when half the government was being restructured after the conspiracy trials. Today was different, though. Today, the Imperial Senate was holding a session that had been announced across all 12 worlds of the Empire. Every senator was required to attend in person. No remote participation, no exceptions. Something important was happening. Minho stood in a preparation room near the Grand Assembly Hall, wearing formal clothing that felt strange and uncomfortable. Captain Sora had delivered the outfit that morning with instructions to wear it and report to this room. She had not explained why. "You look very official," Yuna said. She wore formal robes as well, marking her recent promotion to full technician. After her bravery during the attack, Master Huan had insisted she skip 2 levels of apprenticeship. "I feel ridiculous," Minho said, adjusting the collar for the 10th time. "Why do I need to be here?" "This is government business." The door opened. Empress Haijin entered, followed by Captain Sora and Elder Suho. They all wore ceremonial robes, the kind reserved for the most important state occasions. "Because, Minho, today you are the government business," Haijin said with a slight smile. "I do not understand. You will soon. Come, the Senate is waiting." They walked through magnificent corridors. Toward the assembly hall, Minho could hear the murmur of thousands of voices beyond the massive doors. His heart pounded. Whatever was about to happen, it was enormous. The doors opened. The noise died instantly. The Grand Assembly Hall stretched before them, a vast chamber that could hold 10,000 people. Every seat was filled. Senators from 12 species sat in their designated sections. Observers filled the upper galleries. Holographic cameras floated everywhere, broadcasting this session to every world in the Empire. Minho walked beside the Empress toward the central platform. He could feel millions of eyes on him, some curious, some hostile, many confused about why a human technician was at the most important Senate session in decades. Haijin took her position at the speaker's podium. Minho stood to the side with Yuna, Elder Suho, and Master Huan. Captain Sora positioned herself nearby, hand near her weapon despite the heavy security. "Senators of the Velrathi Empire," Haijin began, her voice amplified to fill the enormous space. "I have called you here to discuss the future of our empire. Not our immediate future, our long-term survival, our continued relevance in a changing galaxy." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Senators glanced at each other, wondering where this was leading. 3 months ago, we faced a crisis that nearly destroyed us. Our quantum network, the foundation of our power, was attacked from within. Our best engineers declared it unfixable. We prepared for the Empire's collapse. She paused. Then something unexpected happened. A human maintenance worker, new to the palace, solved the problem using methods we had never considered. He communicated with our oldest machine as if it were alive, and it responded. A Velrathi senator stood up, his blue robes marking him as a representative of the industrial worlds. "Your Majesty, we have all heard the story. It was impressive. But why revisit it now? Because it revealed a dangerous truth, Senator Bongsu. Our empire has stopped evolving. We maintain what we have. We preserve our knowledge, but we no longer create new knowledge. We no longer adapt. We have become so focused on perfecting what we already know that we have forgotten how to learn." Another senator, this one from the military world, stood. "That is not fair, Your Majesty. Our technology is the most advanced in this sector." "Is it?" Haijin challenged. "Or is it simply the oldest?" "Yes, our machines are powerful, but they were built by ancestors who knew things we have forgotten. We maintain their legacy, but we do not improve upon it. When something truly breaks, we struggle to fix it because we do not fully understand how it works. We are caretakers of ancient wonders, not creators of new ones." Silence fell over the chamber. Many senators looked uncomfortable. The truth was harsh. "Humanity is young," Haijin continued. "Their technology is primitive compared to ours. But they have something we have lost. They improvise. They adapt. They see problems from unexpected angles. They do not accept that something is impossible. They simply find another way." She gestured to Minho. "This human saved our empire using equipment that we would consider outdated. He succeeded not because he was smarter than our engineers, but because he thought differently, and that difference is precisely what we need." A tall senator from the Velrathi core world stood up. Senator Aksu, Minho remembered from the briefings. A powerful voice in the Senate and known for traditional views. "Your Majesty, are you suggesting we adopt human methods? That we abandon 10,000 years of tradition for the improvised chaos of a species barely off their homeworld? I am suggesting we learn from them, Senator Aksu, just as we learned from every species that joined our empire. The Teichmann taught us advanced mathematics. The Bora taught us biological engineering. Every species that joined us brought new knowledge, new perspectives. Humanity will do the same. But they are not part of the Empire, another senator pointed out. They have observer status only. They are barely tolerated in our space. Which brings me to the reason for this session. Hyejin's voice rang with authority. I am proposing full membership for humanity in the Velrathi Empire. Not as a client species, not as junior partners, but as full and equal members with all rights and responsibilities that entails. The chamber erupted. Senators shouted in surprise, anger, support, confusion. Some species had waited centuries for full membership. Humanity had been in contact with the Empire for barely 5 years. This was unprecedented. Senator Oxu's voice cut through the noise. This is absurd. Your Majesty, humanity controls only a handful of worlds. They have no advanced technology. Their military is weak. Their culture is chaotic. What possible reason do we have to grant them full membership? Because they fix things, Hyejin said simply. They see what is broken and they cannot help but try to repair it. That is their nature. And this empire, senators, is broken in ways we have been unwilling to admit. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared above the chamber. Statistics, charts, projections. Our population growth has stagnated. Our scientific advancement has slowed to near zero. Our military has not developed new tactics in a century. We are an empire in decline, coasting on the achievements of our ancestors. We need new ideas, new energy, new perspectives. Master Huan stepped forward, bowing to the assembly. If I may speak, Your Majesty? Go ahead, Master Technician. 3 months ago, I believed humans were inferior. I gave Minho an impossible task, expecting him to fail, hoping to prove that his success in the plaza was luck. Instead, he succeeded through methods that violated every principle I believed in. He made me question everything I thought I knew about engineering. And that questioning made me a better engineer. I have learned more in these past months working alongside Minho than in the previous 10 years. Not because he taught me new facts, but because he taught me to see problems differently. Yuna stepped forward next, her voice shaking slightly but clear. I am a young technician. My training was traditional, proper, by the book. I thought that was the only way. But when assassins came to kill my friend, the book had no answers. So I improvised. I adapted. I did what humans do. I refused to accept defeat and found another way. I saved Minho's life because he taught me that rules are tools, not chains. Elder Suho, ancient and wise, spoke last. I have devoted 200 years to maintaining the quantum network. I believed I understood it completely, but it took a human with basic equipment and strange ideas to show me that our oldest machine was more than we realized. It was alive in ways we had stopped recognizing. Minho did not just fix the network. He helped it heal itself. That required wisdom we have forgotten. The wisdom to listen rather than command, to communicate rather than control. The senators listened, but many still looked skeptical. Senator Oxu stood again. These are fine speeches, but they are about one human. One exceptional individual. That does not justify granting full membership to an entire species. You are correct, Hyejin agreed. So let me present more evidence. New images appeared in the holographic display. Incident reports from across the empire. In the past 3 months, I have been collecting data on human contributions to our empire. There are currently 3,000 humans working in various capacities across our worlds. Most in low-level positions as humanity has observer status only. But look at what they have accomplished. The report scrolled past. A human agricultural worker on Bora Prime, who developed a new crop rotation method that increased yields by 40%. A human teacher on Velrath who created educational programs that helped struggling students learn advanced mathematics. A human medic who improvised a treatment for a rare disease using common medications in an unusual combination. A human engineer who fixed a century-old water purification system that 5 master technicians had declared unfixable. These are not unique geniuses, Hyejin said. These are ordinary humans doing what comes naturally to them, solving problems,